I suppose what we probably should start off discussing is what should you do in terms of post-processing. So there are some, or what's the definition of it, I suppose? It's going to be anything that alters the image. Now, whether that be color, sharpness, cleanup, cropping, resizing, all of those sort of things come into post-processing activities, and you do any one of those for particular reasons. So from my perspective, I don't do a lot of post-processing. I've got, as you know, a fairly good camera setup. My lighting seems to be pretty good, so I don't need to do much in terms of tweaking of colors or anything like that. But there are a couple of things that I do around the visuals of the image itself. And then I do sometimes crop, and I do use the resize, particularly for if I've got an image that's going on my website. I don't want something that's going to be 10 megabytes in size, because it obviously takes too long for people to open up. So it's probably a discussion around those sort of things. You know, what is something you should be able to do, and what things are sort of not good to do, like image alteration, making something out of an image that isn't what you actually see, as an example. Maybe some of that is okay. For instance, if you've got a specimen that has a broken crystal or something like that, is it actually okay to remove that crystal from the image by using post-processing?
It's a new one.
Well, if you're selling it.
It
Never
is.
thought of that.
I'll give you an example of where something like that is good, particularly with micros. I've got some micros that were mounted by other people. As some of you would know, I'm not a micromounter as such. I'm not like a Quentin, who's an expert in that space, or a Mike Seeds. I tend to use mineral tack, which allows me to, move things and reposition, and my fingers are too fat to do mounting as such. I don't have the patience for it. But with some of the older specimens in particular, they are permanently mounted. There may be, let's say, a little bit of lint or something like that that's on the specimen that maybe I don't even notice, and I can't clean the specimen other than just blowing it with air or whatever. And you've got this bit of a thread or something that is going right across the middle of a crystal, but you hadn't noticed it until you got to the end of the generation of the image. Then there's an easy way for me to actually remove that from the image. And to me, that's fair game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and me.
Yeah. Doug.
So I shoot fluorescent minerals, and I can clean it as much as I want. I've got an ultrasonic cleaner. I've got, the canned air, I've got a compressor, but ultimately it's Photoshop. Yeah. Because no matter what I do, there's lint on everything. Some people go to the effort of like burning it off. I'm not going to try that. They say a map torch is really hot enough to burn that, but not mess up the mineral. But no, it's Photoshop is what I'm almost always going to do. Sure.
All of us, I think.
I think that's a fair comment too. So those little bright blue dots that you get on things are definitely with fluorescent photos. So does anybody else have any particular comments or... Oh, Doug again.
So again, because it's fluorescent, I shoot with I take multiple shots. And so it could be white light, short wave, long wave, or something else. And I will then take them all into Photoshop and scale them so I can actually flip back and forth between them. Because it helps me to figure out, well, what was glowing, what wasn't. I can look at it then and try to help identify things. And so I'm almost always going to do that. And I may need to scale it a little bit. Generally, if I'm not doing something dumb and I didn't jostle it, then it maybe just just nudge it a little bit so that they match exactly. On top of that, then there's the color. So even if I'm shooting outside, shooting whatever, I've found that the digital cameras are never really color.
Yeah.
They're never really what I see. Whether or not what I see is accurate either, I don't know. My brother-in-law just got a cataract removed, and he's like telling me the difference between one eye and the other eye, and I know that there's a lot with that. But I'll try to match the color, either the visible white light or the fluorescent ones. Beyond that, there's other ways to post-process with various software, and I found, because I'm not real good at the really small stuff that you guys have, that I'll try to take a picture through the microscope or something else. And then there's some software that you can use to sharpen things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just looks better because you sharpened it, even if it was in focus. So I'll play with that stuff too.
Yeah, I agree with what you say about like cataracts as well. I had my cataracts fixed probably 10 years, nearly 10 years ago, 8 or 10 years. And I had one eye done and then the other one done a couple of weeks later. And we were renting, I think, at that stage, and I walked out of the back door of the house and I saw through one eye the green of the grass, and it was just so different to the one that hadn't been done. And it was so vivid. And I thought, what have I been missing out on for a few years? It's just in terms of color. So yes, I agree totally with that. And you've got to go with what your eyes see. You can't try and do it even with monitors. I mean, everybody has different monitors that probably show colors and whatever, and vibrancy in different ways, whether it's through the settings or the actual monitor itself. So you've got to do what, if you've got the monitor that is fairly true to color, which, there's ways of checking that, but you've got to do it to the extent of what you believe you see. Even stacking tends to reduce the vividness of some photos as well. You have a look at the individual photos and you can see a vibrancy that may be missing in the final stacked image. So a slight tweak there, I think, is actually okay too. I'll show you in a little while what I use to actually do that. But yeah, to me, that's not messing with the image in a way that is changing it into something that it's not.
No.
And I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, sure.
There are questions, again, fluorescent stuff, but there's some minerals near you down in and they look fabulous if you light them way more than you can see.
Yes.
I mean, the colors are all there, but they're all small, and the camera appreciates it. But at that point, it's almost art, not a rock. Because if you watch, invariably you buy the rock and you get it home and you look at it and you're all disappointed because it doesn't match what that picture had, even though the picture was not altered.
Yes. Yeah, totally agree. All right. Any other comments about whether you should or what you should do?
Well, sorry. Okay.
I don't. Sorry, I don't change my color hardly at all. I just use brightness and contrast.
Sure,
yeah. I put the levels up and the brightness down, or vice versa. That gives me the control over how bright the image looks. That seems to be an improvement on the original. But I find that whatever I shoot, whatever lens I shoot, I need to do some sort of sharpening on the final image. There's never enough, for me anyway, on what I'm looking at on the images as they come off the camera.
Yeah, sharpening is one that I tend to stay away from in terms of the function. I don't use Photoshop though. I use a different tool.
No, I mainly use the unsharp mask, which I don't know what it does, but
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I've heard that using unsharp tends to be.
But what you can do in Photoshop is if you're using any of those settings and they look too much, you can go back in and just reduce them down anyway. So if it looks too much on full, I just knock it back to about 50 or 60 and that looks okay again. But then I am reducing my images down now because they come with that new camera I put in. It wouldn't run it took me about 20 minutes to run a stack of 5 images.
Ooh.
So I've had to cut down the quality of the picture to a lower quality. That now gives me a stack. I can do 50 images in about 20 seconds. So I'm starting from a lesser quality anyway.
Yeah.
There's other settings related to sharpness that Photoshop has, or Camera Raw has. In terms of, there was something called dehaze, and it seems to make the blacks a little blacker. The minerals seem to look better when I
It's more in Lightroom, that I think, isn't it?
Well, I think
Lightroom,
it's all
yeah.
Adobe, so they probably have the
Lightroom.
same tools.
Yeah, yes, more. I think that's more in. Yeah, I think Lightroom is a much more powerful tool, but I can't get my head around Lightroom.
Photoshop is good for really editing a picture. Lightroom is good for fixing colors, but I can't get my head around Lightroom. So.
I can't get my head around Lightroom at all.
Yeah.
No.
But Camera Raw, which is generally free and most places have it, can also, if you shoot raw, we'll do that. The other
I can
setting
shoot
was,
raw, but I don't. The files are just too big for me.
right. But they have more information, so you can get stuff back. You can fix the overexposure, fix the underexposure a little bit better. The other setting is which is again related to sharpness, is I think there's a texture and a clarity, and they can again give you a little bit better edges on the crystals and stuff like that. And I think that works with the minerals.
Yes, clarity is the one that I tend to use. There's Vibrance and clarity in the tool that I use, which is Photoscape or Photoscape X. And a little tweak. I basically do 50% vibrance and 20% clarity and see what that does to it. And if it looks okay, then that's it. I'm done, which is pretty good. So I'll actually bring that up in a short while and show you what I do with that one anyway.
No, I don't like.
Sorry, Quentin.
I don't like digital cameras for sharpness at all. I got far better pictures on film using my old Pentax LX than I get using the digital. So even
good old silver halides.
No question that if you took a picture with, I don't know, 100 ISO or a 50 ISO film, there was a lot of resolution there, and it's just hard to actually use it once you take the picture.
I think that's an important point.
Well, I'm the other way around. I'm finding that all my slides that I took, which I thought were quite good, when I'm now looking at them now after I changed them into digital, they're absolute rubbish compared to what the digital.
The changing to digital is though another process, and that's another couple of days worth of learning, because you could convert it poorly or convert it well.
Yeah,
that's probably the case where you got to invest. The more you invest in your scanner, the better off you'll be.
Yeah.
My scanner died. I was going to buy a new one, and it was over $1,000. I'm like, I'll wait for the price to go down. The price went up.
Mine died at the start of the COVID lockdown. About 2 or 3 weeks in, my printer and scanner died, so I can't do anything now apart from I had to buy a black and white only printer or black only printer, and it now works on. I can do about 5,000 sheets of paper on an ink bottle, which is quite good. There's only one color, black.
Henk, you were trying to say something before. I don't know whether you.
Yeah, well, I only do micros, which as you know, so I always have to stack, and that's an average about, let's say, 80 or 90 frames. But then you just have one choice, that is to post process it. I use Lightroom for things like cropping, clarity, etc., the basic things. And then, of course, I try to clean things before I make pictures, but on a picture you see everything. So afterwards, I use the new Photoshop. There's a new feature of Photoshop. It recognizes your Apple Pencil now on the iPad. And so all the dots and the specks, etc., which are not on the camera but on the specimen, can be tipped away. That's what I do all the time. So you don't see them anymore on the pictures. And there is that's what I wanted to say. A new, I think it's new. Adobe Photoshop camera, it's called, and that I use that for. At the end, when everything's ready, I let it go automatically through this Photoshop camera, and the things like vividness, etc., is enhanced to the max by that program. So there's just an automatic thing. It's called Photoshop camera, and as far as I know, it's just new since a few months. I think, I'm not sure, but I thought that was. And that works very good for me. Works very good for me. Yeah.
Is that all part of the Photoshop suite?
Yeah, sure, of course. But
I don't know. I don't see it in my cloud.
Sorry?
Adobe
I have
Creative.
the whole Photoshop thing, and I don't see that listed.
Yeah, it's a new one. It's new. Yeah, but I don't think it's part of the total suite. You just download it. It's just, as far as I know, it's free. So it's very simple.
Is it on a computer or is it on the web?
Yeah, it's on the web. Huh?
On the web.
And, I have a Mac, so it goes through the Apple Store. But I think it's just the same for Samsung or whatever. I think that you should look into your own software shop that you always use.
One of the other things Henk just said made me remember that the problem with digital cameras, among other things, is that if you get a little dust on the sensor, it ends up on every single picture. So that's another thing that you have to.
Yeah, sure. That's another.
Pay to get it fixed, or you delete that in every picture. Yeah.
So that's where Helicon's dust map comes in handy.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Although you do get more dust over time. So what I've found is even with my new mirrorless camera, I need to do a new dust map, even after about a month.
Yeah. I think that you need a dust map when you have, let's say, single specimens without a background. If I photograph micromounts on a matrix, then you don't see nothing of specs that's on the camera. So you see only specs that sits on the specimen itself. But if I make pictures of, let's say, single specimens, thumbnails, then I see the things on the camera also. And in that case, you could use a dust map, but I hardly ever do that.
If you're doing the dust map, you could take a picture of a white wall, and you generally see where all the dust.
I know how it works. Yeah, but for micros, I don't need it. That's okay.
Yeah, I find that that saves me a heap of time over what I used to have to do with Zareen. But yeah, I suppose each to their own. I might just share just what I do. So if you can see that.
Yeah.
I'll just get rid of that.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Right. So what you were saying just before, Henk, if you look down in this area here, there's a little dust trail. Now, I did use the dust map on this one, but you can see here that one's got through. There's a little one there. That one just above where the pointer is another.
Yeah, that's what I do with my Apple Pencil. I tip it away.
And yeah, so if we have a look, so this is, you can see there, that's the dust trail.
Yeah. That's on the camera.
Yeah, so what I do with that is, this is using Photoscape, is I have a tool here which has a spot healing brush, and I just get rid of it, and it's gone. You can see there's another one down the bottom there, get rid of that, and it's gone.
Okay.
So that one there, it's gone. That one, I'm seeing more and more now. That one there, it's gone. And of course, if you enhance the vibrancy a little bit more, you'll see more of those as well. So with this particular specimen here,
the newest feature of Adobe Photoshop is that it reads your Apple Pencil too.
Yeah, well, I don't use the iPad for mine, but
that's a possibility too.
Yeah. So what I normally do with this one is, so in this color option here, I've got vibrance and clarity. So I normally set that to 50. And if you do a compare, you can see the background gets a little bit more bluish. It's sort of cool. It makes the picture a little bit cooler.
I don't know what this software does, but in Photoshop, vibrance typically is going to affect blues and greens, whereas saturation is going to hit the reds too.
Well, I find that doesn't change the overall color to what I'm seeing, from what I'm seeing. But the vibrancy, sorry, the clarity, if I change that, then you get a slight sharpness. You can see there's a difference between the two.
Yeah.
And the second one probably is usually about what I sort of take it to. Now, I always do that with the compare anyway, just to make sure that I'm not changing it to what I'm not seeing. But that's about the extent of what I do with it. Just apply that. And then I've seen another little dust trail there. There's another one just up there. You just see them.
Well, Steve, would you normally keep a picture with this much background?
Not necessarily, but
because you could crop away all those dust trails by
not the one that was on top of the
not there, but yeah.
But then that brings me to the next bit. So if I just zoom in here, you can see there's little specks and whatever as well. So
I hate those.
Well, I tend to use the healing brush because I might just mute Rupert for a minute. What I've found with this particular software, the healing brush not only takes out like the spot, the mark, but if you've got one that's on let's say a corner of a crystal, it actually looks around it and it replaces through the middle of the spot, the edge of the crystal as well. So again, you can undo them if you need to, but doing that sort of thing, whether this one's a good one to actually show, let's find one. So here's something I can't fix. I've got a bit of a chip out of the back of the crystal there, a slight ding on the corner here. Again, things that you don't normally see when you are looking at it through the microscope. But if you look at this orange bit here, that didn't do a good job, so I need to undo it. But with the
Steve, the white thing on the right side.
Eyes open.
Try to, yeah, that one.
That one,
How do you do that?
Your eyes open. Yes, I was listening.
So that's not going to do it because it'll do it if I do it a couple of times. Yeah, it's not too bad, but it's left a little bit of a circle in that area there. So I then have to get rid of that.
This is the spot healing brush. Is there another healing? In Photoshop, there's two other brushes that you could copy the edge from elsewhere, and you may some of those other brushes may actually work where the spot healing doesn't. Yeah, the clone stamp would probably work. Yeah, you just clone the edge right below it and bring it up.
So clone stamp is in the pro version. I've got the free version, but yes, I agree, and cloning certainly would help with that. But for something like this, it's very straightforward and it doesn't take very long to do. And the good thing with this particular spot healing brush is if I've got the image viewing at that percentage, you can see how big the circle is. If I increase that to that, the circle is still the same size. So I can zoom in or not, depending on what the blemish is that I want to get rid of. And I can get different results if I'm doing it at a different percentage. Sure, so it's actually quite good. There's another one there.
You can adjust the size of the brush also, huh?
Yep. See, that one is a bit trickier at this level.
You may be better going across the grain instead of with the grain, because it'll see where the edge is and just get it.
So that can do some damage to it as well. So if for instance I do that, you don't really see anything at this level, but I do it here. Yeah, you get shadows and things that start to come in, and it takes a bit of playing around to
Yeah, sure, of course.
sometimes, but the end result is pretty good.
Yeah.
Now I've got to hang on. I'll just come back to.
Steve, your computer is a Windows or a Mac?
Windows.
Okay.
So I've got another one that I can show that. Hang on, let me just open it up. That's something different. No, I don't want to save that. Right. So here's another example of where I use different functions, and I might use the. Hang on, who's got chat? Chat says. Gerhard's had to leave.
Yeah, Gerhard's gone. He can't understand us.
No, he's not gone. He's still
that's
there. I'm going now.
All right, so this particular one's another single crystal, but you can see here I've got some mineral tack in the background, and a reflection here that's got bits of dust and whatever, and some scratches on the plastic surface and that sort of thing. So with this one, this is the image after I've actually played around with it. You can see here that the angle is slightly different as well, so I've rotated it slightly just to make it look right. And all of this area here, I've selectively just used a mask and then used blur or other features to sort of remove the distraction, I suppose is the best way to put it.
Reduce the distraction.
Reduce or remove, yes. But you can see here, this is distracting. These areas here are distracting. And the end result is a much cleaner, much better on the eye image.
With my fluorescent images, I actually tend to delete the entire background so that every image has black and it's just completely black. So unless it's a black mineral like that, then I might make it some sort of gradient around it. But Photoshop has some features, the newer Photoshops, where I just say select the subject and it generally gets the exact subject that I want. And then I can invert the selection and just make the background go away, because it's normally covered with lint that I have to clean anyway. Yeah. But I know they have fancy backgrounds, you know, when Jeff Scoville takes a picture of something, but for my stuff, I just want to get rid of all the noise.
So
but that one was a challenge, the one you were just looking at.
Yes. So I do that as well, but I use Microsoft Word.
Really?
Yeah. Remove background. Do you want me to do one for you?
Yeah.
You use what?
Microsoft Word.
That's a new one.
Yep. Let me just. It was actually Ed Richard that put me onto this. Yeah, I'll just share another chat message. So here's Microsoft Word. Now, generally what I'll do here is, first of all, this is just a personal thing, is I will increase the size of the document, if you like, so I can have a larger image and it will not sort of shrink it. If it's a landscape, and just get narrow margins, and then I might just find an image. So something like this one. So there's an image, not the best one. It was taken with either an iPhone or an iPad or something like that, but go remove background. And Microsoft Word does a fairly good job. And then what you do is you just tell it, okay, well, I don't want that area there. Now it's taken some of what I don't want, but I'll get rid of the stuff that is easy first, and even bits in here. Just click on those. And then if it's a thing that's got lots of, you know, odd edges and whatever, it can be a bit tricky sometimes. But if I want to keep, you know, this area and this, and this is a tough one because it's not a really sharp delineation between the background and the
colors.
so you can see there I'm going to have a bit of trouble to actually get that eventually, and it misses bits like these. But it does a pretty good job.
So where, and I mean, Photoshop works well, but I'm curious, where in this is it hidden inside Word?
So, so say keep changes, and when you've got rid of those last bits up the top, you can see that would be quite good, and then just save it as a PNG. But if I just go back to, well, actually you can actually do it by, it's very slow. Why it's so slow? Oh, you can actually say here, so you've got an image in there, and you can actually do here remove. Oops, if I can spell. Remove background, doesn't matter, and it'll come up. Or you've got a toolbar. I've got it on my toolbar here anyway. You've got to have an image selected for it to appear in the toolbar. But it is really good for it is really good for a lot of photos that are like that photo was taken in a museum basically, which means I had no control over lighting and there was a glass cover on the case and whatever. But if you're doing it yourself, like this one here, for instance, I could have taken sorry, you can't see it now, the cassiterite. I could have taken a photo of that and put it through that process and put any background on it that I want. Because once you've got the PNG, you can just put it onto, black background or a graded background, or even in PowerPoint, it's easy to get a background that you can just drop it onto.
Well, I never knew that you could do that. That's worth the evening just for that. That's brilliant. Good grief.
Yes, it's
wow.
It's quite useful.
I'm going to put it on my screen, and while we're talking, it's brilliant. And then you can save the image back again, can you?
Yeah, you just save it as a PNG.
Yeah.
Obviously,
wow.
It retains the background.
I haven't done the background. I just looked at the picture in there. It's brilliant.
Well, I'll show you a few that I've actually done.
I found a problem with the print screen function on Windows 10. When you use print screen now, it puts it somewhere on a clipboard. And the only way I can get it back is to put it in a PowerPoint. But you can put it this way and put it into this.
I'll show you. Here's a few that just a better view. So here's a few that I've done recently. So this is actually quite a good one to show. I'm on the wrong share. Hang on. Let me do share screen rather than share. Brilliant. So this one here, for instance, was quite a tricky one. And it's not a bad result.
Yeah.
And a nice sericite arrowhead here.
So there's lots of software that's for masking. I mean, some software it's completely made for masking. You can spend $80 on a piece that just does what you just, and it may get a better result, but that was pretty good for for something you already have. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to pay for something that I don't need. For me, this gives me exactly what I need in terms of the vast majority of specimens that I want to do that with. Because when I'm doing my publications, certainly a lot of the larger images, I actually use those PMGs with no background, and then you can overlay your text and whatever as well. It works really well. So yeah, it's good fun. All right. Hang on, let me just bring up. So probably just one other comment while we're in that area of discussion. Just cropping you mentioned, Doug, anyway, but resizing. So generally my images, I just have to get rid of that. So that's PNG.
Yeah, tell me how you do that. Resize images.
Yep. So what I'll do is,
But Hank, you have Photoshop?
Yeah, sure.
Photoshop, within the last year, they've come up with a new feature. I don't exactly know where it is because I haven't done it, but I know they have something that's supposed to let you scale up quite a bit with really good resolution.
Yeah, sure. Because I have a website, you know, and my photos should be resized because it takes far too much memory.
Well, that's reduced the size. Yeah, that's a different issue. But
so yeah, so what I do
size
here,
is not cropping, but resizing, it's a difference. Huh?
yep. So what I've got here, this is out of my Canon 5 DSR. So you can see there, it's quite a large image, and it's probably going to be 12, 14 megabytes thereabouts. So I generally, after I've done whatever editing I'm going to do, I keep 3 versions. I have a PNG file, and it's the PNGs that I generally upload to Mindat as well these days, particularly because Mindat has that capability of scrolling in now. A bigger file is better. But what I then do is, again in Photoscape, we've got these standard resize things here. I do a 2000 pixel version and I save that as a JPEG. And I do, I'll do that first. So if I go save and then save as, bump it up to 100%. Save as, it's going to be a 2.2 megapixel file. And then what I do is I save a one at 1280, which is still a reasonable physical size. And I generally save that one at 80%, which is down to 228 kilobytes, but it's still a good image. And I save that, I put a WP at the end for WordPress because my website's a WordPress. The 2000.
You can already do that when you save your image in Helicon Focus, huh? Before you save it, you always get this question: how many percent do you want it saved?
I save it 100% because I use my images for 3 different versions of 3 different reasons.
Yeah, sure.
I use and I haven't done any editing at that stage either. So after the editing, I save a PNG, which is full size. I save one where I put a 2K on it for 2000 pixels. And I use that in the publications that I do. And then I save the one with the WP on it at a reduced size for WordPress.
Okay.
That's just
your publications printed or they're just web?
They're PDF, but they can be printed.
I just say if you print, then you have to go through a whole nother layer of sharpening.
Yeah.
Because you need a lot more resolution and you need the sharpening to get it to look good on a printer.
And it also depends on how big the image is and the printed, whatever you're printing as well. So, stop sharing.
Is the hematite?
Oh, yes, that's my desktop background. It's hematite from a locality about an hour and 20 minutes away from me. All right.
Hank, do you know how to reduce the size in Photoshop?
No, I didn't try it until now, so I don't know.
Do you want me to? I mean, I could show you.
Yeah, I think it'd be good if you could do that, Doug. It'd be good.
See if it'll work. I have it open.
Yeah.
Problem I've got now with Photoshop is being cloud-based. My system's very slow where I live. It takes ages to just load the thing in every time.
Yeah, the online ones can be a bit dodgy.
We can't solve that, Martin.
No.
No.
So
No.
can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a micro, but show you that this is, so that's what it let's see, what did it look like originally? I guess that is what it looked like. I didn't do anything. I immediately moved it over into a different file that has you know, all the same versions registered, make the background black. But if you just want to save and reduce, you do save as, and then, oh no, I'm sorry. To reduce, you do image, and you can change the image size here.
Yeah.
And
Right,
then,
yeah, right.
then you, did you see it? So image size, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you could change the width or whatever. And when you do it, you can tell it, what do I want? Do I want it to let it figure it out? You know, do I want the details if I'm, you know, do these things if I'm enlarging, or if I'm reducing, I may want it to be sharper. Because as you reduce, you lose resolution.
Doug, we can't see the menus.
You can't see the menu. So if I do this, can you see that? No,
We can see your pointer.
but it doesn't say automatic preserve details.
No.
So let's see if I can be clever about this.
No, I can't see what you're doing.
Yeah, just a second.
Okay.
There's the menu.
Yes.
So if you pulled up that what you want to do, it offers you whether you want to enlarge it or whether you want to reduce, and it suggests you want which method to do it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of methods for doing it, but that it helps it decide as it's shrinking or enlarging what sort of things you want to do.
Yeah,
That's
I have a program on the Mac which is called previewing, and I can do it all there also.
Yeah. Preview will not do it as well, but but it is free. Everybody, all Macs have it.
Yeah, so
I do use it if I'm not doing something that's important.
Okay. But I just have to see how that comes out in my website, because what I don't want to is photos on my website which are blur or less detail or whatever.
So the one that I let me show you one here.
Also, Hank, if you in Photoshop export the image, I think it also gives you a chance to do that.
Okay.
So the one that I use, that's the image on the web, Hank.
Yeah.
That's my 80% reduced. So it would have been about 200 and something odd kilobytes, which these days is nothing. So
good enough, huh? Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, it's good enough, sure. Well, I have some possibilities I'm going to try now, sure. Okay, thanks, Sean.
All right, so
remember what we've done now. That's
you'll have to watch it.
Yeah, well, you learn new things every day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Except when you live in a region where everything is very slow. Yeah, that's a principle.
Yeah. So just going back
now than there used to be. I mean, there's software now. It's called Topaz Sharpen AI. So they're claiming AI. And
I tried that and binned it straight away.
Yeah.
Really, because I tried it and I took a photo that my daughter took on a vacation, I don't know, 8 years ago. One of the ones that I would go, I should have thrown this out because it's completely out of focus. It fixed the entire picture.
Yeah, it works for things like portraits or landscapes and stuff, but it doesn't work well for minerals.
I actually were using it on minerals. I was even using it on stacked minerals because it just added a bit of sharpness to the parts that weren't good enough. And I don't know if that's because I didn't know how to do the stepping between each shot wasn't enough. And I finally realized that I could actually tell it, I wanted to take a smaller step than I was actually taking. But it actually was helping. It's just that there's a lot of stuff that you can't do. And Gerhard was saying about 20-year-old Photoshop. I know that a 10-year-old Photoshop has better, they've just fixed the features along the way. In 20-year-old Photoshop, you couldn't do that spot brush across a line without damaging it, but now you can.
Just in terms of tools, so I use Photoscape X. I also use one called Photo Filter, which is another free one that I've had for probably 20 years. I don't think it's been updated in probably 15 years. It's a French It was developed by someone in France, I think. And I tend to use that really just for, if I do need to clone something specifically, I'll do it in there. But I also use it for building up certain images for a particular reason. And then Microsoft Word, and that's basically all I use. But you've got Photoshop, Lightroom, Corel, PaintShop Pro. PaintShop Pro used to be really, really good many, many years ago.
It's been around years, that
It's
hasn't
been,
it?
but Corel, I think it's now counted as a professional photo editor.
As a desktop publishing suite, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The Coral suite.
Yes, and this is part of it.
Right.
Rod Martin in New Zealand uses one called Fast Stone, which is interesting, seeing he's a mineral collector. He does his image cleanup with that, and that's a freebie. He also uses one called Image J, which is another free one that allows you, it's an easy way, part of what it gives you is the ability to put scale bars on your images, which I used at one stage. I know people that use GIMP. That drives me nuts because the user interface is just horrible. And the same with Raw Therapy, RAWTHERAPE, so 2 E's, which my son actually uses when he's processing raw images, but I tend to do everything with JPEGs and PNGs these days anyway. There's I don't think it's a new one, but it's got a new version out. There's one called Photo Pos Pro, P-O-S-P-R-O, which I downloaded last night and I'm going to have a play around with. But my initial thoughts, I think it does a lot of the work online, even though you have a downloaded part of the program. And it seemed to be, just very, very quick look at it, it seemed to be very slow and clunky. And when you dragged your cursor across the screen, it sort of went dut, 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 and jumped. So I'm not sure that one's going to be any good. Microsoft Photos that comes with Windows 10, apparently you can do a certain amount of image manipulation or whatever with that, but I don't know to what extent. And it's also like Google Photos and Flickr have image adjustment capabilities, but whether that's more basic stuff or doing things for social media posts or whatever, where you want, you know, things to look fancy, maybe more that direction. Steve Stewart.
Yeah, I use a program, it's not supported anymore by Google, called Picasa.
Yes, yeah.
And it's a photo cataloging software package. I think Google Photos has replaced it, but I can't find where you can do any editing in Google Photos. But Picasa has some very rudimentary sharpening and resizing and color adjustment, contrast adjustments. They've got a button called "Do You Feel Lucky?" that kind of adjusts contrast and color in one shot. And if you like it, it works. If you don't like it, you back it off, and you can do a auto contrast feature or a auto color feature. But you know, it is very, very basic, and I've been using it since 2012. I think I first downloaded it, and so they don't support it anymore. But I've been very happy with it overall.
Well, I use I use Earthenview, which I think is a German one for looking at all my pictures. I don't use the Microsoft one. I had it for a while, then I stopped using it, and I started using it again because you can do some minor adjustments in that. But you get a compare screen come up so you can see what you're doing when you get the original, and then you get the one the image you're changing. So you get, and you can, but the only problem is once you click the button, you can't go back. So you've got to be sure you want it before you actually click go. There's no save, it's automatically saved. So
yes, that'd be a no-no.
Yeah.
Picasa also has a retouch feature where you can change the size of the brush up or down and get rid of specks and get rid of lines, and backgrounds.
Yeah, I
That
think
works out very well.
I think what it comes down to, the tool that you use is either what
The one
you
you're used
feel
to, I think.
comfortable or what with.
That's
So
what I
do
say.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I've used a few over the years, but I'm pretty happy with the ones that I currently use. As I said, I've tried out this photo. Well, I'm trying out this Photo Pos Pro, but my initial thoughts are it's not going to give me anything more than what I currently have anyway. So
Kind of depends on what you need. So if you start having to adjust part of the picture, then you need more powerful software. If you have to adjust just the color, like one of the colors is wrong, and I've had that problem, and I think fluorescence is going to cause that more than other things, where the orange is wrong, but everything else is right, then you have to just do selecting, and then you need the more powerful stuff. But otherwise, it is just the basics of removing dust and stuff.
So I just with Photoscape, Doug, for your benefit. So under color, you've got all of these different options here that you can tweak. So it's quite extensive, and of course you can mask various areas as well. So it does give you lots of different options, and it's free software. So which is the other thing.
For the PC.
Sometimes free, you get what you pay for, but in this particular instance, it's pretty good. All right, we're getting up towards 7 o'clock, so I've been going nearly an hour, which is pretty good. Other than the words remove background, did everybody get something else from it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
sure.
good session. Very good.
I wrote down a few things that I'm going to try now. So yeah, sure.
Excellent.
You learn new things every day. That's what this is all about. Huh?
That's what this is intended to do.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. Right.
All right. Any questions?
I just need the one that looks at the picture, tells me what it is.
Doesn't Facebook do that?
Yeah.
It depends who comments.
That's funny. Some of the things they come up with.
All right. Well, if there's no questions, we might close up for today. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. I think it was a good session all round.
Thank you.
Where's Richard Bell tonight?
He had an appointment, so he was going to miss out. He'll watch and same with Frank Bowman as well.
Yeah.
They both got tied up. So
yeah.
And Paul Vandenbergen probably just didn't wake up. He did say the alarm goes off. Anyway, all right. Well,
okay.
See you all in 2 weeks' time.
In a couple of weeks.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.